notification that it's being recorded.
Yep, I can see it right now. So, all right, so let's get started then. So this is to make up for our attempt last week that had some technical issues with having Alex and Rob comment on a couple of more or less famous videos that we've had over the years. So I think we've got some of those technical issues ironed out. And, you know, I can see, Alex, you'd have your traditional track day shirt again that you're wearing. Myself, I brought on Showing Off the Shogun of Harlem. Probably one of the most famous or infamous internal martial artists out there. And then Rob
Great
is,
movie.
yes, that is an awesome movie. I remember actually, Alex, you might have been there for that. No, Rob was there. Rob was there for that one. We made Akuzawa Sensei watch the last 10 minutes, the final fight scene.
Oh, right.
And he was he was busting out laughing the entire time because that is it's definitely pretty entertaining.
I don't think he'd ever seen a black guy in a Shogun outfit.
I mean, who has?
Like
You know?
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen it and wanted to watch an 80s classic, go watch.
Yeah, John's familiar with it.
Yeah. In fact, I remember watching it in the first place you had in Japan. I remember watching it years and years ago, Rob, as well.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. So let's get started with our first video tonight. So this video that I'm about to share is been around for years and years. This was, I think, one of the earliest videos that Rob actually had displayed of himself doing what most people would be familiar with for martial arts. Just to give a quick summary, some of the kicks that you're going to see Rob do were some of the basic kicks that we used to do in class years ago. So give me one moment, and I am going to queue up this video. All right, can everyone see it?
Oh man, yeah, blast from the past.
Yeah, this is an old one.
Actually, yeah. Actually, let me explain this one because I really like this video, especially now that we know what we know. This is an excellent video for people who are starting out in Aunkai, kind of a progression almost, right? You're gonna see this is what you might consider a progression video. So we got this gentleman over here. You get very typical, you know, martial arts type kick there. They look great, actually, if you ask me, and they look pretty good. But you can see there's no real weight behind them, right? But I think most people would agree that that's a very good looking kick. I mean, sure, he's not doing full out, but. And then we have Rob, and he's just kind of emulating him and showing that, yeah, these kicks are great, but let's use our alignment. You get your alignment going, up and down alignment. Once you have that mass put together using the alignment, boom, wonderful hit there. So you got that full mass moving the guy. You're kicking with the full body's mass. And there's him explaining that's what you were doing. And then here's what Rob's doing. So you watch Rob when he does this kick. It's great. See how he's very upright. Oh, this guy, Rob, what did he do? Pause it real quick. Hey, Hunter, pause that real quick.
He pulled it away. Actually, no. So when I think about it, I told him to do that. Because I was trying to emphasize to him that I wasn't overcommitting because it's only your axis moving forwards.
Yeah, I like that because I don't know. So I thought he actually did that to fake you out, which would have been funny, but
right.
And nothing would have changed, right? Nothing would have changed because you're moving with your whole axis. You're not committed in any direction, right? You're not leaning forward to do kicks. So as you're sliding forward or really shifting your weight into a forward motion and releasing that kick, you're never off balance. I think it's one of the greatest assets of the kicks that we teach in Aunkai. So yeah, the big one is that, so he's explaining that he's creating this line through his spine, which I would say that we kind of moved away from that. Again, this is a great progression video, and we use that. It's very powerful. Your spine is very powerful, right? And we rely on it all the time. But even when we rely on it, we don't actually have it aligned properly. And here's Rob using his spine aligned correctly, and then moving that alignment forward to create that kick, and then now you maintain that mass. So for folks who are more advanced or have been with us for a while, the reason why I say we kind of moved away from it is that we've also kind of, Akuzawa Sensei says center line all the time. And what I didn't think we quite understood back then was that we thought he meant the center line as, left to right center of the body, but he literally meant center line, which means not just left to right center, but forward and back center, right? And we tend to be very back biased because of our spine. So
I guess I think it's fair to say, like, I don't know, probably mostly back biased.
Yeah,
that's why you kept on saying, like, you're leaning.
Well, you weren't the only one, right? Even I was doing this back in the days. Yeah. It's when I figured that out, like, oh, we're leaning, right? Even though we had that center line, we were still leaning because the forward and back bias, it never clicked for us until. But
by the way, this is why this was confusing to me, guys, because like Alex was like, you're leaning, but if you look at this video, like, it doesn't look like I'm leaning, right? But all of my power was coming mostly from, I guess, an expansion from the back, and you can see it affects the guy. I mean, he didn't like taking these kicks, actually. He's from an offshoot of Kyokushin, I believe. He was also a fairly regular competitor. He didn't like taking these kicks. I remember Mitsuhashi, who we'll cover later, was the one that kind of goaded him into taking these kicks on camera.
He has a good build, though. I mean, I can't. He actually has a better build than you did back in the days. But you were still throwing out much heavier kicks than this guy was, and it's not a weight difference either.
Yeah. The sound is also interesting. So for those of you that can access these videos, listen to the sound of the kicks.
You want to hear it? I can turn the audio on.
Oh, yeah. Can you back it up?
Sure, you want to hear it from the beginning? Like when he was kicking?
Yeah. It's very surface, I think. I mean, Alex, what do you think?
Yeah. It's like hearing a slap, right?
Yeah.
It's really, there's no weight behind it. And you can see that, yeah, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, the sound. Much lower sound.
Yeah, not only is the tone deeper, it's longer.
What's the word? Impulse? Physics specific impulse is what I'm thinking of.
I believe so. Yeah. So if you're hitting the mitts, go for the deeper sound. When Orc hits the mitts, there's a very nasty thud sound. It doesn't make that much noise. It makes a very deep sound, and that's something you should be afraid of. It's always fun when somebody else is when you're observing it. It's not so much fun when you're on the receiving side, or it can be fun. It depends. Depends on your definition of fun, I guess.
yeah, seeing people's reactions the first time they receive that kind of kick, or a kick of that level of power is always interesting.
I will
Yeah,
comment that my kicks back then, especially my low kicks, didn't have that much. I didn't have articulation of the knees. My hips were really stiff. Um, yeah, I mean, honestly, like I look at this and it's, but
Well, Rob, then I mean that's a fair point. How would you contrast what it would be like now if you were to do these three kicks?
hmm. The low kick, I would, so I end up kind of like leaving it out. Well, the way that I would do the low kick is just completely different now. Um, to put it simply, I would probably lead a little bit more from the knee because that allows me to put more of my body weight behind it. And for those of you listening in, Akuzawa Sensei talks about, leading from the elbow, that the power comes from the elbow on out, elbow on out. Without getting into the specifics for now, if you're leading here from the elbow in order to articulate or send in a force, then that means that the corollary to that was something that's analogous to that is to your knee. So if I were going to hit that low kick, it would probably be the knee joint that leads in this case.
and I would interject if I was doing the same kick, it would feel much lighter, or it look lighter to folks. Just like the
Yeah,
analysis
it
of,
would look lighter. Yeah.
yeah, because when we do the punch, we don't try to punch through the guy. We want to touch the pads, right? You do the same thing with the kicks. You just want to touch the guy. And as long as you have that alignment, the mass is there. As soon as you touch the guy, they just go boom, because you transmit that energy very cleanly.
So whenever Sensei practices punches, Alex brings up a really good point. He actually touches the mitt. All he does is he just kind of like touch, and then boom. Alex was actually the one that noticed this first in class, where he was having everybody kind of hit the mitts really hard, but then when he was practicing, he would be touching. He would be touching the mitts. And then
he doesn't even say he's practicing. He say I'm playing around. You guys can ignore me.
That's always the thing.
I'm just playing around.
Yeah.
If you need to build up a vocabulary, like a dictionary of sorts.
Yeah, we need a
if
translator.
Akuzawa Sensei says if he's playing, that means practice. Okay, playing, practice. So if anytime he says asobi, asonderu, you should be listening. You just like you should start paying attention. That's just that's just how it is.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
I think I actually held the pad. Sorry,
no, go ahead.
I remember because I held the pad a lot for him when he was playing around, because I told him, so I had a back injury, right? Back in the days, I still do. It's like the back injuries never go away. I told, Akuzawa Sensei, I can't really do these very hard. And he's like, no, I'm not going to go very hard. So you can hold the pad. So I did. And it's like, and you're right. He literally touched the pads. I didn't feel anything on the pads until he did the finisher, of course. And then the mitts go flying. He was nice enough to not actually put it into me. Depending on how you punch, you can put the energy into the person, or you can send it away from the person. He'd be gracious enough to send the energy away from me, and when I even hold it like directly at him, trying to absorb it, what he'll do is hit it, and then and the mitts just go flying from my hands. No matter how tight, I tried to hold it on really tight too. One time, my arms go. Poof.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we start the next video then? Okay, so let me give the kind of background, just what's going on here. So this was, I think, was this the second or third Sanda seminar he had done? But whichever it was, I think all three of us were actually at this one.
I think it was the second. Was the
Yeah,
second?
I don't. This
Because
definitely wasn't
he
the
made
first
us
one.
fight.
Yep, yep. They made us all fight in this one. I remember there used to be a picture of me fighting on the old Aunkai page years ago.
Yeah.
So, all right. Who's going to have a go at describing this one?
I guess I'll take it.
Sounds good.
Um,
All right. Let me start it up.
oh yeah. He's sticking his belly out. So could you pause it real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of context, the guy with the protector on him is Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi was an accomplished grappler. He won a couple of amateur tournaments actually, but he became much more accomplished at striking. But as you can see in this video, he's, it's striking is obviously not his forte. But Akuzawa Sensei, Sensei was kind of giving him some insights into how he would kick, which went completely over Mitsahashi's head, understandably. But yeah, roll and then kind of. So we have this first front kick here, where he's like, if somebody hits you with a front kick, okay, let's look at that leg switch. So pause right there. So what he's going to do is when somebody hits that front kick, he's saying you're going to do a leg switch where you bring your lead leg back. And then what's going to happen is that when you bring your lead leg back, that's going to bring your mass, concentrate your mass to the center. And then what you can do is you can use the mass, the weight that you feel built up in your rear leg, and use that to kick the person with the front kick, which if you play the video, I think is going to do. Yeah, there we go. And then Mitsuhashi is like, he's confused. He's like, what do you mean you use the mass? He's like, you're not. He's like, you're not like thrusting the hips. He's like, no, no, no. And you can see that elastic buildup. If you can go back like 10 seconds. A little bit more, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So can you see, Alex? I mean, can you see that kind of like elastic buildup that he does?
Yeah. Most people are not gonna see that though. It's tough to see, even these older videos.
That, like, yeah, it's, and you can see it a little bit more in that front knee as it moves forwards, but he's saying you want to bring the mass and weight that you feel from the rear leg and just impart it to the other person and transfer it. But he's still staying very vertical.
His head stays
for the
pretty
most
much
part.
up the whole time. It's not like it goes
Yep.
backwards as his leg goes forward.
Actually, keep it in slow-mo, and we can see like Mitsuhashi, this is, his center of gravity comes up. So he loses a lot of the effect of his mass when he's trying to mimic that, that kick. They're doing completely different things.
Yeah, it's funny to see Misashi because he literally, his body stops moving. Then he raises his legs up and then tries to kick. He's just lost all of his momentum and all of his mass that was already moving with him. And he kills that just to get his legs up to kick. And Akuzawa Sensei does not do that. He still maintains that flow. That's why he looks so smooth.
Yep. Mitsuhashi is fighting gravity at that point because he's stopping, then raising his leg. So he's got to fight gravity.
And then he tries to fall on top of Akuzawa Sensei.
Right forwards.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, Alex, a lot of people think that that's what using your weight is that you're resting on top of someone else, which is a no-no.
And that's not a bad analogy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that idea, right?
Mitsuhashi hopping on one leg. No, but he completely destroyed his balance there.
Yep.
Sorry, continue. I thought.
No. It's actually a good point. And like I said, everyone has that idea. Gravity is something that falls. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that what most people don't ever realize is that they're actually trying to fight gravity first by standing up to kick. And then they wasted all of that energy, and then they only go up a little bit, and then they try to drop, use that drop from a slightly higher elevation to a slightly lower elevation energy to kick. And there's no need for that. You're already on the ground. That's your full mass already. As soon as you stand up, you lose all the power you built up that, when you're static. And then you're only using a very fractional of it as you're falling.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you see, Akuzawa Sensei never goes up. It's really cool seeing this even back in the days.
He's low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He isn't just low. He's like literally on the ground and just glides with the ground almost. That's how I interpret it as. His mass is just it's like a rolling ball.
Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to kind of demonstrate his punches. It's actually pointing at his back foot. Yeah, it's fine. So this one's interesting because he's like, normally you lead with your, you just for a jab, you're gonna, you're gonna flick your hand out. So Sensei here is saying, when you do that, oh, you just did it. Like when you do your jab, use your rear leg to power that jab. And then he already did the buildup, and then he followed with that straight. But that's something definitely interesting to play with. So I played with this a lot, where instead of like trying to hit the jab and trying to, to turn your shoulder into it to get a little bit more mass, Sensei was saying like, well, why not just use your lead leg there and use that to move your center of mass and use that to hit the person with that jab. That's a really heavy jab, by the way. So that also creates a buildup in his midsection, which then he fires off in the second punch, which you can see. Actually, can you play at normal speed and then play the sound? That sound is not yeah, that deep sound again.
これだからこっちの足をこうやってこうやってこういうふうにそしたらこっちの足
So you do it like this with the rear leg. There we go. You get that deep reverb sound.
まあちょっと武術寄りのあれなんでねやり方なんですみんなこれで腰にってると思う
Even when he kicks a pad away, it looks scary. That's the one thing that I remember from that song. Like, even when he was kicking a pad away, it just looked functional.
そしたらこう溜まったらこれを持ってるんですよ
Oh, listen to that sound.
ほんなら一
Well,
番
let's do that
今
again.
溜まったらこれを持ってるんですよほんなら一番今
Yeah,
こっちで
you can hear me Tashi go, ah.
そしたらこう溜まったらこれを持ってるんですよ
That's that elastic.
ほんなら一番今一番
And by the way, he's also saying, like, this is bujutsu yori, which means it leans more towards a bujutsu use of the body, or a martially efficient way to use the body, but it's still like the worst way to use the body. It's not the cleanest way. It's oh yeah. So then he's saying like match your elbow to your leg and your knee when you hit. Yeah, Mitsuhashi is like, he doesn't know what's going on.
To be fair, I don't think any of us really.
No.
Nobody did. No one at all. And then he also did chastise us, I think.
In fact, like what's funny is that he's talking to Miyakawa-san off camera. He's like, you know how you hit a jab, like this, but you can do it like this. I don't think Miyakawa, I think it's fair to say Miyakawa-san had no idea. None of us had any idea. All we did was nod our heads and go,
Mhm.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, no, we were all Mitsuhashi at that point.
But the other interesting thing is that back then, I don't know, Alex, do you think he's using more of his back then?
Yeah, I would definitely say he was. It's
And when
not
I
to
say
say
back,
he's
backside,
yeah,
backside thing.
like that, especially that one. He was definitely using it
Yeah.
spawn. You can see it pretty clearly. He doesn't do that anymore, and that's why he's so scary. He looks so natural looking, but he's not doing what looks natural.
Well, would you say he looks more conventional now?
I would say so. Yeah, definitely. Com very, very conventional looking. You might even say I think it's because what he's working on currently, but he almost looks like he's working on, he looks very karate-ish in certain hits that he does do, but it's nothing conventional. That's for sure. And I think I mentioned this in the first streaming. I have, you guys agree that, I helped unlock a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's thanks to these videos that we had, and I got, we had a lot of hands-on time with Akuzawa Sensei, right? But I look at his current videos, and I just cannot decipher them like I used to be able to in the past. He's gotten so advanced that it's really, really difficult to really understand what he's doing, because he's combined so much elements into a single hit that you don't even know where to begin. It's like looking at trying to explain quantum mechanics now. It's insane. Yeah, but the thing is, it looks normal to everyone. Is like, oh yeah, he's just punching. Nah. I could sit here and give you about a week's worth of lecture on what he just did with that one little punch, easily. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that, Alex, because our last video that we have here is a much more recent video. So.
Oh God, is this the bow one that Mike wanted to look at?
Yeah, it is. It is. Who's in here?
No. Mike, you had to pick like the hardest one to analyze.
See, yeah, Mike is a brainiac. That's why.
All right, can you guys see it on
Oh
your
yeah,
end?
it is. It
Oh,
is.
yeah.
I don't even know where to begin this one. All right, I'll start, but you're gonna have to help me here, Rob.
Mm,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I can say that I can help you.
You know what? This one's short, so let's just play through the whole thing. So let everyone give everyone a chance to see the whole thing. If you want to turn the audio, actually rewind and just go ahead and turn the audio.
Yeah. Let me start again. I'll turn the audio on.
By the way, before you start, I want to say, for those who do know Japanese, listen, but don't try to figure out what he's trying to say.
ここだけで前後ろそういう状態をこう大きく最初は練習していきますね。でそれの中心はお腹です。
He's just saying that the center is his stomach, and you want to wrap that bowl around your stomach. That's grossly exaggerating everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, ignore it. The subtitles are absolutely correct, but don't try to use that to define what he's doing right now. That's for sure. Yeah, that's.
ここだけで前
All right, what can we at least explain? Let's start with that.
There we go.
Let's start with that.
I would personally, ignore all this, like all the hand waving and the bowl waving for now. I would start from his the first 2-3 seconds where he's just like waving back and forth.
So where are you looking right now, Rob?
I just back that up. So 3 seconds, the first 3 seconds or so. Right there. Yeah, right there. So when he does that, at least by my eyes, if you compare it, to the previous video that we just saw, can you, like, to me, I see he's using more of his front here. He's much more relaxed in the pelvic region. He's actually not using his back as much. He's not building up any kind of force. And but he's still trying to maintain that center line. That hasn't really changed. But he's also he's gripping the bowl very lightly, and he's almost trying to keep this chest lifted, I guess he is open, and he never wants to really lose that throughout the movement. I mean, that's the initial thing that just jumps out to me.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, all of those points. Also, you can definitely see. So what it's actually, his zipper is a great reference point. If you can kind of see that line never changes. He's saying, throughout this video, he's saying his front is the center line, and you want to balance the bow around and spin around it, right? So if you guys imagine that zipper just being the center of his body, you can see how the bow just kind of pivots off of that, right?
Yep.
It's very, very cool. It's not pivoting off his spine. Most people, when they try to do this swinging back and forth with the bow, they actually pivot off their back spine, which means that the bow is about a good 6 to 8 inches away from the center line.
Well, you mean the hands move away from the center line?
No, even if you put the bow right in the... here, let me get my bow real quick.
No, you're right, Alex. I mean, he keeps it, if you look at the middle of that bow, it is very close to his body all the time.
So it's funny because, like I said, what he says is everything 100% correct, right? But you got to really dig deep to get the good interpretation of what he's trying to say, right? So even with most people, when they have the bow even right across their on their stomach, right, like this, and they try to do it back and forth like this, they pivot off their spine. So they actually have this kind of pivoting motion. You guys see me moving my chest?
Mm-hmm.
And then that means the bow is good. If your spine is back here, right? This bow is good 6 to 8 inches away from that spine, right? So there's that delay. I'm moving, here's me twisting my spine, and then the bow moves. There's just ever so slight delay. But Sensei is creating this frontal center line, right? He even says it in the video. It's on the front. And you want the bow on the stomach. And then he pivots off of this center line, which is right on the bow. So now you're just pivoting, literally just pivoting the bow, not the body to pivot the bow, right? So when he does this, see, now the bow is moving. Only the bow has to move versus you moving the body to move the bow. It's much more efficient. You just literally do that. And people say, well, why don't you just move the bow? Well, okay, if you guys just move the bow, how are you going to move the bow? Everyone uses the arms, right? Versus being connected here, and then you just literally just move the bow. Very big difference.
He's also using separation here. So saibunka.
Yeah. I didn't think we wanted to talk about that. That's another rabbit hole.
Just simple for a simple explanation, simple exercise that you can do if you get a partner. If you try and push like this, then the person can resist, because as you push, that pressure is going to go up. The funny thing is that, if you turn your head, then you do the same movement, there's no buildup in pressure, but it's very easy to then move this hand out of the way. That means that you changed the equation, and the other person wasn't able to change or pick up on the change in that force equation. And so you're easily able to move this. So what he's doing is he's moving his shoulders, his elbows, etc., around that front center line that Alex was talking about. That's why he's so quick when he manipulates the bowl. But that's just another facet that's layered on top of that. I mean, that's just 2 layers so far.
Maybe you guys can can help decode this. Why is it advantageous to use that front line?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. This is another multifaceted one, but let's start with the more, I would say, more simpler reasoning behind it. And this is where it kind of goes back to that center line we were talking about, right? You want to create a center line that's in the center of your body. I don't think Akuzawa Sensei is using only the front, right? But he tends to harp on the front because we are so back biased. We rely on the spine so much. And most people don't realize this. And when you guys don't realize it, and you guys start to practice and say, I'm using my center line, you're actually using your back because it's so biased towards the back. As soon as you think what's neutral, it's actually the back. So we try to concentrate more on the front, create that frontal center line, a virtual spine, if you want to call it, the front line, and we concentrate on the front line only. And that would combine with your back biased actually creates an automatic centering of your body, that center line that gets created with the combination of you consciously trying to create a frontal line with your automatic biased, well, automatic, and that'll give you that center line, right?
So what exactly does that feel like to have that front center line?
Neutral. I think Rob likes to call it, I think we all call it kind of a precarious balance is the word we currently like to use. It feels like you can either...
Sensei says stand on a point, I think.
Yeah. Stand on a point. Ten no tatsu.
Yeah,
ten no tatsu. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like you can topple forward anytime. You can topple backwards. You can topple left or right. You feel like you're on a very, literally, you're standing on a tiny little pole, and you're trying to hold that balance, and you can fall any direction of that from the pole, but you're not falling. You're still balanced and rested at the same time.
I think a lot of people might identify that sensation as being off balance, actually.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. I think you would be off balance and without actually falling any direction, any of the 4 directions.
Now, what about to your partner or your opponent? I mean, how are they going to feel that differently as opposed to using the back?
So if you're actually holding that properly and you have your precarious balance maintained, as soon as they touch you, it's them they actually lose that balance. That's how they feel. What happens is that as soon as someone touches you, right, you actually become, you and that person who's touching you become a single entity. There's a single mass now. When you have a single mass, there's only one point of balance point, right? There's only a single center line. As long as you maintain your center line, as soon as that person touches you, you steal that center line from them. And they're off balance instantaneously on contact. And that's what everyone's feeling when Sensei's touching you.
So I think he used this analogy that like he's like, if a drunk person comes up to you and grabs you, and a drunk person is off balance, they'll take you off balance. I don't think most people realize he meant you have to be the drunk person.
So for something like push out, is that what you're actually supposed to be doing?
Exactly, yeah. Before when you guys do push out, before you even touch your opponent, you have to create your center line, front biased for most people. You get your precarious balance, and then you feel very neutral. Like Robert said, it feels like you're off balance, but without you actually falling down. And it feels very weird. It feels very lightheaded almost. And then as soon as your opponent touches you, now if you lose this precarious balance, you actually feel normal. You feel like you can now resist the person, right?
Stronger.
Yeah. But you actually don't want that. You actually want to try to maintain that nebulous, lightheaded feeling where you feel like you're gonna topple everywhere. And as soon as that guy touches you, he can't maintain his balance. And he loses his balance. And if you try to walk while maintaining that, the guy just gets pushed without any resistance on your hands. You're not gonna feel any of that push and pull feel that most people have when they try to do this exercise.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Alex brings that up because so you have this precarious balance, which arguably is like foundational to everything that Sensei does. It's also the one that he hates talking about in some ways because it's really difficult to explain.
Yeah.
But then there is also an aspect layered on top of that where when you use the front, you can absorb an incoming push, etc. And because this is different using the front tissue or the what do you call it, like the joints on the front versus using the front line or slightly, I don't want to say different subjects, like they're related to each other, but he layers that on top of it. So just really quickly, if you do like a mental exercise, I think Miyakawa Sensei did like he did something where he shows like a bowl and he has somebody hold it, and if you push it, then it's hard to move the other person. They feel the force buildup. But then he's like, why is it so easy when you bring your palm underneath, and then it's really easy to move the person. If you actually do the experiment, what you might find is that when you bring the palm underneath, no longer are you accessing your backside, you access the front tissue, basically the pull mechanisms of the body, and so the other person can't feel what's going on. So now you have precarious balance, which by default means you're not leaning or doing anything, and you already have the person's balance. Then on top of that, you stack this kind of like absorption quality, so to speak, this kind of thing, and it really does a number on the other person's brain. They just don't know where to phrase from.
So, Rob, maybe you can explain what you mean by absorption.
Literally, okay, so there's a really simple experiment that you can do. So let's say somebody pushes into you this way, and I'm trying to think of a good way. Actually, like if you raise your chin and you lean backwards, the pressure will go down. But the problem with this, by the way, this experiment is that you might feel this stretch in the front, but you would attribute the decrease in pressure, and you might feel a decrease in pressure here to you leaning backwards. But you can create that same decrease in pressure where if you bring your chin forwards and then your chest drops, as the person pushes in and you counter with your chin coming forwards and your chest dropping, that pressure will increase in your stomach, but not at the hands, which is kind of a head scratcher. Because to the person pushing, it feels like they're increasing the force, but it's like getting dumped into this black hole. It's like, I know I'm pushing, but where's the force going? It's because I can't comment as to what's actually going on, but for whatever reason, like when you access this front here, and as you point forces downwards, this incoming force basically gets absorbed. It just gets dumped into the neither, basically, and it gets absorbed. It gets erased, dispersed, or however you want to phrase it.
So you think
Minus power. Sorry, that's what Ark used to say. He used to say negative power, minus power.
So you think it's a function of conditioning as well as skill, or do you think it's more reliant on one than the other?
No, it's definitely a skill. I don't know. I think It gets better with conditioning, obviously, but anybody can do it.
So is that something you typically show in one of your seminars?
Yeah, yeah. I pretty much I have people do it within the first like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
What kind of reactions do you get from that?
I get really interesting reactions. Well, people that come to the seminars are in a way like they're there to learn, and they're not, it's not about like, does this work or not? So like, you get the typical reactions like, oh wow, this feels really cool. The more interesting reactions are when you try somebody like somebody that does BJJ or something. I've seen reactions where, oh, the best reactions when you see the eyes swim and they can't really process what's going on, and then they start making stuff up like you must be using the muscles from something or another, like the back kidney something, or I'm just like, I didn't even know I could access it specifically from there. Or, oh no, the best one was for the separation exercise, which I show in my seminars, like at the very beginning. I'm just like, okay, try this. I did this to this one grappler, and he was like, you're using your neck muscles to drive it. And I'm just like, how the hell am I using? All I did was I turned my neck and then I moved my arm. It's like, and I find it interesting because like BJJ is that paradigm, like where they espouse live training and logical thinking. But I see some guys completely abandon any kind of like logic in order to explain something that they've never experienced before. It's kind of amusing to watch. Sorry, there's a little bit of a rant, but
that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. So those were our 3 videos. I haven't had a chance to check the chat to see. Oh, I do see that John did see my show notes shirt. So any questions that you guys have for Rob and Alex and their analysis of the videos tonight?
I mean, if you guys want to show, huh?
Oh, Xavier's saying I got a guy telling me I was using more muscular fibers this way.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe. I mean, that's fair enough, right? But it's being used in a different kind of way. Right? So because it's actually, I used to laugh at that, Xavier, but at the same time, Sensei is like really ripped, and if he wasn't using those muscles, he wouldn't maintain that muscle tone. The thing is that when he uses his muscles, like they kind of remain soft, but like the outside can remain hard, or he can make the external be soft. But he's definitely using them, I think. It's just the way that our brain perceives using the muscles is different. It's not going to be in the way that we conventionally interpret it to be that way.
So I got a follow-up question for you, Rob. Does Sensei do any sort of weight training or anything like that, or is his physique mostly the result of this type of training itself?
As far as I know, he experimented with weights for sure. He experimented with weights, but I don't think it was the primary developmental tool for him. So like, so say like he would experiment with something like this kind of kettlebell, right? So he's like, well, he's like, if you lift this kettlebell like this, and if you were to like punch like this, and you have to lift it like that, there's a lot of weight that gets placed on your shoulder. On the other hand, if you hold, and in this case, he would hold a dumbbell. I'm using a kettlebell. It's actually easier. And you rest that weight here on your shoulder onto your stomach here like this. Well, you can actually hit a jab fairly easily like this, right? Because the weight remains rested here on your stomach like this. So that also means that punch here is no longer a, what do you call, like a, it's not your typical punch, because your typical punch means if you carried your weight here it's going to exhibit stress here on your shoulder, and you're holding it up. The punch that then he experimented with means that he was using it more like a shot put. And what he would describe is it's like throwing something away. You want to punch like you're throwing something away. So that means that if you had a weight here, the weight remains here inside of your stomach. And then he would do that with, I think he did something crazy like, I think 15 kilos.
Yeah,
20
I
kilos?
asked him about it one time, and he said it was about 20 kilos. And that's
20 kilos is a lot.
That's a lot of weight to go toss like that.
What did I do? I have, okay, so the max that I've done is 16 kilos, by the way. But it's, but you, when you do it, you actually have to be fast to protect your shoulder, because it's like a shot put. When you throw it out, you immediately retract the weight back into yourself so that you're not leaving it hanging, so that you never want to be fighting gravity. That's a good way to mess up your shoulder, actually.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you have your arm all the way out like that, that's
no. But so now when you hit the jab, it's really interesting, because then, for me it was interesting. It's like, oh, so he never tries to actually like land that weight, like put it in. He's always trying to keep his mass inside of himself, and as a result, it feels heavy to the other person. But and then he wrapped weights around his ankles, and somebody caught him jogging, and then he denied it. And then he said, actually, I experimented with it, but I didn't find it very useful. Alex, you were playing with weights.
Hey, Alex, we lost your audio.
Oh, can you hear? Oh,
no, we lost your microphone, Alex. You're not muted.
Well, so I'll just interject and say that Alex was probably the first one that kind of clued in onto the use of weights and started needling Sensei about weights.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. I think it's actually Miyagawa-san who actually caught Ark on that.
Oh no, it was Brian.
Was it Brian? Okay.
It was Brian. Yeah.
But I heard that.
By the way, we have two Brians. We have Chinese American Brian, Asian Brian, and then we have white bread Brian. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the other Brian.
Oh man,
he caught Sensei jogging with ankle weights.
Yeah, the stories I remember about that guy.
Yeah, that's probably best for another time. And
yeah, I think those are after-hour stories. So.
Yeah.
I need to stop the recording if we're going to talk about Brian.
Yeah, I think that'd be another day. So,
but
yeah, I mean,
but you were experimenting with weights, Alex, right?
Yeah. So weights are actually a really good way, because weights can't lie, right? They just if you screw up, you'll feel it through the weights. But what's great is that I was actually experimenting with. It's funny you mentioned that story, because I heard that story, or I was there when I heard that story. I'm like, years later, back when I was in the States, I actually did try putting on weights on my ankle, and I think they were like 20 kilos each on my leg. And I just did normal Aunkai exercise with them, and initially, like, it's hard because you try to fight that weight, and that's when I realized, like, oh, okay, so hold on, so Sensei says don't fight the weight, like you said about the punch thing, right? So I'm sitting here, with 20 kilos in each leg strapped to me. I'm like, I can't go anywhere if I have to fight this weight. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. So what am I supposed to do to move without fighting the weight? And that's where, you know, how we were talking about Shiko, it's about how to shift your weight in Shiko, right? And it's like, oh, and it clicked. All you have to do is just shift your weight onto one of the legs. And what happens as soon as you shift your weight, because your body is so much heavier, even though I have 20 kilos strapped to my legs, rest of my body is so much heavier than that. As soon as I shift it, the leg went. Whoop. I didn't feel the legs. I didn't feel the weight at all. It was really cool. And I was like, oh, that's why Sensei was talking about shifting your center line.
Yeah, it says shifting your center line versus shifting your weight. Most people think shifting the weight is right. You know,
right.
anybody
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. And this is what really actually threw me off, because remember how Sensei used to teach us Shiko? He used that X line, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, you know, go, you know, make the X line, and then you pull it. So I tried to keep pulling on my leg. It's like, pull on my leg, get that weight up. And you do create the X line. You have to have that. But after you create the X line, all you have to do is just shift that center line to the supporting leg, and that moves your mass over just a little bit. But since your mass is so heavy, like combined mass is so heavy, it doesn't take much for that leg to just go, whoop, come up really easily.
Yeah,
and that's what we were.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, so a neat test is you can just, if you don't have a weight, an ankle weight, you just get somebody to koala bear hug your leg. Hug your leg like a koala bear. You don't actually have to lift the person all the way up, but if you can kind of get them to go light, then you know that you might be on the right track. Might.
Did Sensei do that? I remember people trying to grab onto his ankles, on both ankles. Like,
yeah,
two guys.
Yeah, he did that. Yeah.
I think that was the LA seminar. I think.
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah. There's two guys on the floor, like grabbing onto his ankles, and he's walking with these guys.
Oh yeah.
Ridiculous.
I never work with weights.
Oh.
Never. Sensei, somebody saw you the other night doing weights. Really? Oh, not me.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
Who else is gonna be running around doing that?
But yeah, I think weight. I don't recommend weights, to tell the truth. This is my personal, as a Aunkai USA instructor. I don't recommend weights for most people. It's counterintuitive, because everyone, what they do is, because we're so used to fighting against the weight, we push the weight off of us, right? And you guys try to do any Aunkai exercises with weight on us, you fight that weight, and it's just you start building up bad habits very quickly, and you start to build up musculature that you shouldn't be building up.
Well, the musculature starts supporting the weight, and you become, I guess you could say, it's harder to then discern if you're using that musculature to hold up the weight, I guess you could say, because it just becomes so strong.
Yeah.
You know, once I was aware of it, then I could start using weights. You know, and my personal opinion is, Sensei probably, like, this is something we had an interesting discussion, because I was like, Sensei, you should probably work out more with weights, because he was complaining about the weight of the sword, the Iaito that I gave him. He's like, it's heavy. I'm like, it's lighter than any other, like, it's 850 grams. An actual Shinken is like, you know, like 1 kilo. Okay, so it's not heavy.
Or more, yeah.
Yeah, right. But he's just used to using light objects, actually, so that he doesn't create that sense of fighting something. But then the problem is, I think, that I've personally seen him run into, and he's acknowledged this to some degree, is that he creates forces that are so great that he literally harms himself, which is a totally different story. But you know, so there's an argument that once you're good enough, it's worth it to work out with weights, and that, you know, to build up musculature, that to keep you yourself from harming yourself, basically. I mean, Alex, even, I think you mentioned that, at some point you were punching hard enough that you were afraid that you know, harm your own fist.
Oh yeah,
Or,
not just my
right.
fist. I will literally tear ligaments anywhere in part of my body, even you
Yeah.
think it's strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely generate enough power to even break my own bones easily.
Right. So and boxers have the same issue. Like boxers nowadays have the same issues because they have those hand wraps and like the gloves that protect them. If they punch somebody without those gloves, they actually break their own hands. If they punch somebody in real life without all that protection, they're able to generate that much force.
Well,
I
that's why
don't
they
think
wear
it's
gloves, right?
magical. Yeah,
Yeah.
So right.
Totally.
So I don't think it's magical. It's just if you train right, your body can generate like crazy amounts of force that you just can't handle. So and power isn't everything.
All right, so it's 11 o'clock, or it's after 11 o'clock now. I think let's just give one last chance for the audience to ask any questions. If you guys
Mike, you missed it.
Yeah,
You
you're
missed
late,
your
man.
video. It's done.
Yeah, you'll have to watch the replay. All right, I guess there's no questions this time. So,
Jamie, you don't have any burning questions?
It doesn't have to be what we just went over either, guys. You can
Yeah. No, it can be anything. Okay.
Too late. It's morning over there. What are you talking about?
looks like he's
All right, guys.
Y'all sissies. Bring your questions next time.
Yeah, we'll have to save it for next time. And maybe before we do our next one, maybe we can get some audience questions to kind of set the topic for next time. Rob is getting gray hair. I think we all.
Yeah.
Alex is still jet black.
I think it's
Isn't
hiding
stressful.
somewhere. I swear someone told me I had gray hair, but I haven't seen it yet.
I got plenty. I started turning gray at 23. So. Okay, let's wrap it up. So thanks again, Alex and Rob, and thank you everyone else who attended today, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right.